What's up, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Between the Cons. My name is Kris. I am your fearless leader, and with me today, Mr. Naughty List.
Ahoy!
Kris Too.
Whoa!
Here we go!
Apparently, Banjo, Kazooie, and Mario are both here. MF Dane.
Head on straight, mask on crooked, exit stage left with the cash gone, took it.
Still never getting used to that. And MF Dane's lady friend, Princess Tiara.
Hi, friends.
I feel so happy right now.
So freaking cute.
Sad.
Yeah,
I'm happy.
So we've invited the Disney princess of Between the Cons to the show to talk about sunshine and rainbows. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But really quick, thanks to everybody for tuning into the show today. If you haven't already, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Between the Cons. Review the show on the Apple Store, Apple iTunes app, podcast thingy.
The technologies.
Yeah, you know where it is. Just go do it.
Just tell Al Gore.
There's a thing called the internet. Check it out.
Yeah,
Al Gore made it.
Yeah, he made it when he was 11. That's not true. But we are here today. We're going to be reviewing Black Panther, if you haven't gathered that from the title of today's show, which is Black Panther Roundtable Review.
Yes!
So, MF Dane's time has finally come.
You guys have no idea how excited I am.
And the most wonderful part about it is MF Dane, for the last 2 years, has not given a single crap about his audio quality, but for today, for some reason, he just so happens to be at a friend's house with a really nice microphone. Coincidence?
No.
I think not.
Nope.
No, it is not a coincidence, actually. So stick around. We'll be right back to review Black Panther.
Chewie, we're home. Live long and prosper. We don't need roads.
We'd like to shoot the monster. Could you move, please?
So like I said, we are reviewing Black Panther today. Black Panther is the newest installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe following the character Black Panther. T'Challa, played by Chadwick Boseman, introduced in Captain America Civil War. So in this, the movie follows T'Challa after the death of his father, the king of Wakanda, returns home to the isolated, technologically advanced African nation to succeed the throne and take his rightful place as king. This movie was super good, and we'll all give our ratings here in a second. Directed by Ryan Coogler, also written by Ryan Coogler, Joe Robert Cole, a couple other people. It's sitting at a 7.9 out of 10 on IMDb. It's got an 88 Metascore rating, a 97% certified fresh Rotten Tomatoes rating on the Tomatometer, and a 76% audience score, which I don't trust. And you shouldn't either.
Nope.
Because
I already want to meet the 3% of critics that didn't like this movie. But as far as the audience score, I know it's just a lot of trolls.
I read one of the reviews, and one of the ones that made it into that 3%, literally one of his complaints was that Black Panther didn't do enough, mindless beating up of bad guys.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I'm not lying.
But just to put this on the radar for everybody, Ryan Coogler, the director of this film, has 3 credits to his name. We talked about it a lot when he was first announced as the director, with Creed and Fruitvale Station under his belt, being really high rated. With this one being a 97%, that puts him at 94% for Fruitvale Station, 95% for Creed, and 97% for Black Panther. This movie was fantastic. And Ryan Coogler is freaking blazing trails right now.
For real though.
Over the last few years with his filmography. But we're gonna go around. We're gonna give our ratings. So Dane, I feel like you should kick this one off. So what do you got? Rating Black Panther.
I have my first official 10, and I know you guys are thinking it's because you're black. Well, guess what? You're right.
At least you're honest.
This has been, without a doubt, my favorite superhero movie in a long time. Like, I've enjoyed every single Marvel movie. I've enjoyed somewhat of the DC movies. But this movie, for like the first time, was like something I sat down, I watched, and I just, like, Tiara can attest to it. Like, the whole movie, I was just like super excited for everything. We're going to go back and, like, as soon as we get done doing this podcast, we're going to go see it again.
Nice. Well, that's not surprising, 10. I feel like if we would have bet as a podcast team, no one would have taken the odds for you to rate it anything other than 10. So that's fair. Princess Tiara, what do you rate it?
That's a 10 out of 10.
That's a 10 out of 10. Stand by your man.
That's right.
Kris Too, what's your rating?
I'm going to give it a 9.5 adamantium claws out of 10.
Why not vibranium?
Oh, sorry. Vibranium. My bad. Yeah. Vibranium.
Did you watch the movie? Hold on, time out. Kris, did you go see the movie?
Yeah, 50 Shades Freed, right?
Oh my gosh. Go home.
Hugh Jackman was not in this movie.
Guys, I am so sorry. I thought Kris had seen the movie. That's why I invited him to our Skype call. Turns out I'm going to have to kick him off today's show because he is obviously an idiot.
This is the movie with all the white people in it, right?
Yeah, it's the white people movie. That's the one.
Officially, no, we're not kicking him off this episode. We're kicking him off the podcast now. He's gone too far.
Sorry, 9.5 vibranium claws.
9.5. I'm glad you said that again because I was about to ask you what you said because I forgot it already in the ignorance of you saying adamantium. Mr. Naughty List, what's your rating?
That'll be a 9.5 for me there, Bob.
Great. So
Panthers.
$1, Bob.
My rating is I guess I'm gonna be the low ball of the group. It's a 9.25 for me. Really, really solid film. The only reason I'm doing a 9.25 instead of a 9.5 is because I gave Spider-Man Homecoming a 9.5 and I liked it more. But as we were discussing before the show, Dane told me that that's because I'm white. So fair enough.
Don't act like that was all I said is why.
Well, I was hoping you were going to jump in and explain yourself.
Yeah, I said that it's okay for you to like Spider-Man more because you can relate to a nerdy white kid more, even though I'm really just relating to a black king.
A black African tribal king sitting on the world.
I'm relating to him just because skin color.
Speaking on behalf of all skinny white nerdy boys, we appreciate that.
Yeah. We appreciate your
understanding,
your podcast too black position. This actually is the OG podcast too black, because I think the podcast too black #podcast too black all came about when we first talked about Black Panther.
Yep.
Like way long time ago, and you just went live for like 30 minutes about Black Panther.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to dial myself down for this review because I'm so like in it.
You are much more chill than I was expecting.
Oh, I'm forcing it.
He literally sat on the edge of his seat the whole time the movie played. Like I thought he was gonna fall off the end.
Did you go see it with Mars and Dane?
No.
Or not Dane, Damien? We
actually went before. We went after everyone else did because everyone else went that night, but we both had work. So we just went the next morning.
Oh, fair. So with my 9.25, the 2 10s from Dane and Princess Tiara, the 9.5s from Kris Too and Mr. Naughty List, that brings it to a 9.7, which perfectly lines up with Rotten Tomatoes. 97%, 9.7 out of Between the Cons. That is our rating. And now, for the interesting part, the love-its, the hate-its of the movie. Gonna go ahead and say we were all kind of stretching a little bit to come up with hate-its.
By hate-it, it's more like, this was not perfect.
Yeah, this could have been better.
It was at like 95% instead of 100%.
Right. Yep. So Dane, love-its, hate-its. Let's hear him.
All right, so my love it was.
Did you just kick a guitar? What was that noise?
Oh, my bad.
So now is the time. If you have not seen the movie and you do not want it spoiled, stop here.
So my love it was Killmonger.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I loved him as a villain because this is like one of the few times when they have a villain in one of these movies where you kind of get where he's coming from.
Sure.
He just it's just his methods aren't the right way. Like the best, I think I was like coming back to it. I was like, it's essentially they were trying to do a whole like, what if we did a superhero version of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X kind of like. That's what I mean. Because Killmonger literally was Malcolm X. He wanted like he wanted freedom behind the barrel of a gun. Like he knew
right.
Like that was what it was. He was just wanting violent means, and T'Challa knew it that wasn't gonna get anything better. That's just gonna make everything worse.
Yeah,
people are gonna cool. We've got all these black people armed now with Wakanda weapons, but that's not gonna stop anyone that's evil from getting these same weapons. And once people find out they're from Wakanda, they're gonna try and start coming to our country.
Yeah,
it's like
I will say the only thing for me I wish would have been done differently for Killmonger is they left that rubber band in Michael B. Jordan's hair more, because it looked super dope when it was up, but when it was all down in his face, he looked like he belonged in Friday.
Right? He kind of looked like his dreads looked like Dave Chappelle's in The Nutty Professor.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but when he had him up, I was like,
he looked so dope.
Talk about this man being fly as hell as his intro. Like, you can't have the villain looking this sharp. Like, you can't have this pretty ass man out here as your bad guy. You're not gonna want to root against him.
Well, that was really the thing is with this guy is that, and I agree. Like this was such a good villain because the most compelling villains are the ones that even while you're sitting there watching them do stuff, it's like, oh, this is really bad, but I see where he's coming from. He's got a point, and
his motivation isn't just simply to rule the galaxy.
Yeah, I just wish his name wasn't.
Cool.
I just wish his name wasn't Monger, because it's like the Marvel Studios just celebrated the 10th anniversary, from Iron Man, where we saw Iron Man and Ironmonger, and it's like, all right, we're starting over 10 years later. What are we gonna call this one? I don't know. Killmonger sounds great. Oh.
It's perfect.
At least it wasn't like
nose.
gold.
But that's that's his name in the comics, so I get it. But I think
another thing I loved about him was how like smart he was.
Oh yeah.
And that like when he brought Claw's like body, he was like he didn't even know like he just knew that everyone in Wakanda knew who Claw was. So he knew if he just brought Claw's body to somebody, they would let him in.
Yeah. I guess that's when you spend your whole life planning revenge, I feel like that just goes along with it.
You've thought through the entrance.
Yeah, I think my favorite part was that. I think my favorite part of that was that is when he gets his mask and he goes, "You gonna tell me that's vibranium too?" And he's like, "Nah, I'm just feeling it."
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. That was pretty good. So what did you hate, Dane?
So my hate was that despite how great of a villain we still ended up with the main hero versus an evil version of himself fight in the end.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that was fine to me too. I just wish Killmonger had a suit that wasn't just angry Black Panther.
Like, just the suit,
a little bit more
razzle
dazzle.
being different.
More gold Black Panther.
Yeah, like if he had like
more
a full
flashy.
like if his whole outfit was just all gold with that lion mask he wore, I'd have been hype. Because he wears like flashy versions of Black Panther's like outfits, and he has like a full cat suit that's gold in the comics.
Right.
So it was like that'd been sick if they gave him like a tacky gold costume.
And he'd be the Golden Panther.
Yeah, that is accurate. Yes.
Yeah.
But maybe if it was gold with like black accents, like black trim.
Oh, that'd
black
been
trim.
sick. Yeah.
Just literally the exact opposite of.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like if it had been the exact opposite and he didn't have a panther mask and he had that lion mask still, or it was even like a modified version of that lion mask, that would have been dope. Like I would have loved that. But yeah, that was really it. It was just that the costume wasn't like more unique. It was like Ant-Man or the Ironmonger or any other movie where the bad guy's just an evil version of the hero.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna.
But
pick
that
up on
honestly was
that.
my
I'm not
only
gonna
hate.
make
It was
so.
just that his costume was not as cool as it should have been.
I feel that. Princess Tiara, what did you love? What did you hate?
I loved the part from the fight scene where the rhino comes up to her and just stops and then gives her kisses. That was the best
Of course
part.
you did. That was the best part of the whole movie.
The whole
is
movie.
Rhino kisses.
That made it for me when you
made
get
it.
rhino kisses.
That
you-
is what gave this movie a 10 for her.
Did
She
you-
was like,
Absolutely.
that's it, all right. Then Rhino kisses.
Did you say
Gold.
all
Perfect.
out loud in the theater?
I did.
I
And I
knew
kind
it.
of like shook Dane and was like, oh.
I can confirm this happened.
Okay.
And as far as my hate it, I don't hate anything. So it's great. It was all perfect.
In true Disney princess fashion,
She
Rhino kisses were the love. The hate was nothing.
She wanted a rhino vocal solo. Like
Or
They-
like
that
just
would
need
have
to
made it like a
break out
12.
in song.
or like the Lion King when they're doing Can't Wait to Be King and all the animals like stack on top of each other.
Yeah.
That's you were looking for something like that? Is that what?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It would have been perfect.
Got it. Okay.
Absolutely.
It's okay. It's okay. We're getting the live action Lion King later on. She'll get that.
That would have been a
Yeah.
12 with Donald Glover, no less.
Ooh.
So
I'm
Kris
so
Too.
excited.
Bring me back when we roundtable that movie.
Oh, we definitely will.
Yes.
Kris Too. What did
Yeah.
you love? What did you hate?
For my love it, since Dane already talked about the villain, I'm just gonna say I loved the world building in this movie.
Absolutely.
Everything
Yeah.
about learning about Wakanda. I learned more about Wakanda in this one movie, and I came away like knowing that culture more than I got from 3 Thor movies about Asgard. Because we've spent there's a lot of
Spent a
movies that
lot
we
of
get
time in Asgard. Yeah.
we spent a lot of time in Asgard, and like I have an idea of what it's like, but Wakanda's like, no, I've got a really good flavor for the culture and their politics and what these people are about and just everything. They just did such a great job, not only fleshing out the individual characters, but also the world they live in. And man, I mean, that was awesome and made me really, really want to go back there. I'm really excited to see more of that in Infinity War.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
It was.
I think
it was
I think they did a bang up job of introducing Wakanda because it's something that we've heard so much about in whispers for the entirety of the MCU. But it's like our first introduction, and it's they did a very solid job of providing history and background as well as like current state, like
It not only
international
not only that, it
politics.
also- yeah, and it actually like this. They did such a good job of creating the setting that it actually had an effect on the plot of the movie. Because when they're talking about well, the debate of should Wakanda help the world or
Right.
should it hold back and just take care of itself? I'm sitting there looking at these things and like, man, if Wakanda actually like opened their doors and tried to help the world, that would usher the entire planet into like a new science age.
Yeah.
Like,
Would, yeah.
Oh yeah.
that would create, I don't know, like the world of Star Trek. It would create like we'd be building spaceships in no time and traveling the galaxy. Like that's we would basically be in another Asgard or whatever, or one of these other intergalactic planets that we
Yep.
see in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
Like that
I think,
level.
I think one of my favorite parts that you were saying, like about how the whole setup of it was, like I think the scene that got me when in terms of like setting up how the world was that one moment where T'Challa and Shuri are like walking around the city, and it's got this like city market like vibe of Africa, but then
Oh, yeah.
you're seeing like hover cars pass by. You're seeing people dressed in like modern clothes with like a holographic display on their arm. You're seeing
Yeah.
women dressed in traditional like African clothing, but they've all got these like crazy tech like things helping them clean and stuff.
Yeah, it was a beautiful marriage of the science fiction design, but with a lot of the cultural influence still held on, and I loved that. So,
Yeah, me too.
Definitely.
so A+ in this movie, loved it.
And
For
your
my hate it, and I said before we got started, I saw this movie when I was down in Mobile, and then I had to drive 2.5 hours back home to record this episode, and it took a good chunk of that drive of me and my wife talking back and forth to figure out what my hated was going to be for this movie. So, with that being
it wasn't
said,
easy for anybody.
No, I was like she asked me, so what's your hated going to be? I'm like, I don't know. But really, I didn't want to come and say, but I think for as much as I loved and I believed the complex motivations for all of these really wonderfully crafted characters, the one that I wish we could have had just a little bit more explanation, justification, whatever, was his best friend, Wakabi.
Yeah, Daniel Kaluuya's character.
Yeah, Daniel Kaluuya's character, who was the head of one of the tribes underneath T'Challa's rule.
He's like
they were clearly best friends. He trusts him. They've known each other their whole lives. And then when T'Challa fails to capture Claw and bring him back, Wakabi's response is, I thought it was going to be different with you. For 30 years, your father didn't do anything, and now it just looks like it's more of the same. And T'Challa just says nothing.
Flips on a dime.
And because of that, that is the only real justification we get for Wakabi basically siding with Killmonger when he shows up. And I just would have, and it's all because in true movie, it's a movie trope of somebody's got a problem or somebody doesn't understand something. There's a miscommunication. And instead of just saying to him, no, I tried to get him, I failed, we're going to try again, don't worry. T'Challa doesn't say anything. And so a lack of communication is what leads to dramatic conflict. And I'm pointing it out and I know I'm talking about it, but it's such a tiny thing in this movie. But at the time I was like, oh, that seems kind of a jump in logic for you to just immediately turn on your best friend.
I felt the same way because I was thinking when he was telling Forrest Whitaker's character about the ring, I was like, why couldn't you have just gone to Wakabi and been like, hey man, I tried, but some dude
this guy
who was wearing my same family's ring just stopped him. So give me a second. I gotta figure some things out.
Yeah, that guy's the one that shows up.
We were ready to bring him back, and then this happened. We were surprised.
Movie over. That's what's gonna be how it should have ended.
Yeah.
And so exactly. That'll be how it should have ended. But yeah, so that's such a small nitpick. I mean, literally, it's the kind of thing like, oh man, I wish that they hadn't actually created that dramatic tension or maybe done something a little different. No, it's tiny hated in the midst of a awesome movie. So
yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, literally, he could have said, hey, this guy came up, this guy stopped me from taking Claw, and he had on one of my family's rings, and then some guy with his family's ring comes up with a dead Claw.
Yeah, because it's not like he didn't try. We watched a really awesome car chase scene with him trying to get Claw. And
can we talk about how he emergency braked with his claws on that car?
It was so awesome. It was so cool.
So cool.
Like, I mean, my wife Danielle does not she watches a lot of science fiction and action movies, but one action movie trope she doesn't like is car chases.
That's fair.
Kind of zones out on them, just doesn't like them. But we came out of that and she's like, I loved that car chase scene. That was so cool. It was so well staged, so well shot, man.
Yeah,
I just love when he did the kinetic burst. I remember seeing that scene in the trailer was cool, but when he does it in the movie and you know how he does it,
and you know what's happening,
you're like, oh
yeah.
There's a real, just a side plug to someone who's not a sponsor, but there's a really good Because Science on Nerdist where they talk about how that kinetic energy would work if it was a real thing, and how much energy he's actually putting out of his suit. And apparently the movie's what we saw is a pretty accurate representation. If he was taking bullets and storing up the kinetic energy of bullets and then redirecting it into a car.
No, it's cool, Chris. Let's talk about technology, so I have to think of something else to love. No, it's fine.
Okay, fine.
So cool. What's your love?
My love it was the kind of interpersonal complexity that they introduced. How do you handle a coup that in a lot of ways was a legitimate one? How do you handle the fact that your best friend is the king, or that it's your son or your brother or your ex-boyfriend, or, you know, like there was just a lot of,
or the son of the man that you've served pretty much your whole life.
there's just a lot of interpersonal complexity there that, like, it wasn't just like, hey, there's this bad guy who has no bearing on what should happen here. He's just a bad guy that wants bad things. It was like, no, literally, this is my cousin, and he's in this position because of something that my dad, who I believed was a great man and a great king, did. Like, it was just, there was so much more complexity behind the plot of what was driving these characters than I feel like we've seen in almost any other Marvel movie.
Yeah, I think Killmonger and Black Panther were T'Challa and Killmonger were the most spot on film Marvel movie adaptations of lawful good and chaotic good.
Yep.
Like, hands down, both having the positivity in mind, but finding the ways to accomplish it completely differently.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Royal Coup, as you called it, was definitely one of the most interesting, like,
I don't really think we've seen anything
interpersonal
like it.
things in a Marvel movie. For
Well,
sure.
it's because well, Black Panther the comic is also like that. Like the whole, like the comic is like the Tahiti Coates, like the current run of Black Panther was like, if you weren't ready for a read, you might not have liked it because it was action, but there was a lot of just like this
Dialogue.
interpersonal politics between Wakanda, and that was like the basis of the main storyline.
Yeah.
Was him having to like keep his country together while also being a superhero.
Yeah. So Cole, what did you hate?
I hated that they gave us all this complexity and then just like super left us hanging at the end of everything.
Yeah.
Like, okay, what do you do in the aftermath of the fact that your best friend essentially betrayed you? How do you handle the fact that Wakabe and the general, whose name I'm forgetting, they they loved each other, but they were on opposite sides.
Right.
That the exiled tribe has now come back into the fold in a way. Like, what happened? The fact that he burned all the plants. Like, there's so many different things that, like, interpersonal, like all the complexities, and they're not like plot holes where it's like, hey, I need answers to these questions, but it's like, you gave me this thing and it's so well developed and I really need to know, and instead you're just gonna you're gonna actually give me a sunset shot and then it's gonna be all over.
And that could be a matter of it being the first of many.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, they can take everything that happened at the end of this movie.
Next movie, though.
Yeah, but with like the way that the movie ended was like, what are you guys gonna do? Like, what can Wakanda do for the rest of the world? Because like, T'Challa has just said, like, we're gonna donate all of our, like, we're gonna open up all of our resources and support the rest of the world and like help make the world a better place. Blah 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 blah. And then they say, like, what are you gonna do? Like, what does Wakanda have to bring to the table? It's a third world country, and he just gives this like friggin' awesome little smirk.
Yeah.
And it might be something like along the lines of that, is like in the next film we pick up in Wakanda again, and we kind of see not necessarily direct answers to that, but we see like the fallout of what happened after the first movie and how things kind of fell into place.
Yeah, and I get that, like, you can't really do that in a movie. Like, you can't have the climax of the movie and then the taper off and then, like, all right, we're going to, like, solve all these interpersonal issues because that's another half hour. Like, I get that. That's why I said, like this is in line with I had to try really hard to come up with a hate it, because it's like, you don't really do that in movies, but that's what I wanted because I was so invested in all of the relationships that we saw.
Yeah.
And so I need closure.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I know the Outlaw Steve Jr. and I have talked about a lot on the show, of the things that are wrong with a cinematic universe is movies are written to be in a universe. I mean, this movie was not written to be a standalone movie. It was written to go alongside other movies, and that's just something we lose in single films. Is we lose all of those knots being tied.
I bet you'll actually see some of that in Infinity War.
I'm sure we will.
I hope that like within the next going on from now, like there's gonna be just random super high tech stuff coming out because of Wakanda opening its doors.
Yeah.
I mean, Captain America's beard, I'm sure, is part of that.
Yeah.
His beard will be part vibranium.
Yeah, that's
while we're talking about it, before just all of my love it gets ruined, my love it was. This is the first time in a long time that I have felt we got something new in sci-fi. It's not new to have like some sort of earthly material being used as like a driving force in advancing tech, but the way that it was done, where like the little communicator beads that they all wore, like the sand would like kind of spiral out and form the person they were talking to. The car chase scene that we mentioned earlier, that was also that sand. Like it made a car that the Black Panther's little sister gets in and drives, even though she's not physically there. There's like a thing.
It made a physical car.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like so cool. And then like at the very beginning when they're going to not necessarily rescue, but retrieve Lupita Nyong'o's character. They're like in their spaceship plane, and there's like a war map station that is like this sand, and it's moving, and it's all it's all the trucks in the caravan.
Yeah, he picks up the truck, sees someone in it, and
like,
puts it
way
back
cooler
down.
than Tony Stark. Way cooler.
Yeah,
than Tony
and it's
Stark.
like that kind of stuff is we have not seen that before, and I really appreciated that.
I loved how they treated it too. Like all the tech that they had was that's just Wakanda. Like they just treated it like it's just natural tech they have had forever.
Right.
Whereas in like all the other movies, we're seeing like every time Tony does something, he has to invent something new to help them do something. Whereas in Black Panther, they just have technology for everything, and that's just how their life has been.
Yeah.
Well, and it ran so deep too. Like even his little sister talking about the trains and the sonic panels, like it was almost a throwaway line, but it was vibranium cannot be safely transported at this high of a speed. So I created these sonic panels to like, and it becomes like how the last fight goes. Like it's a setup for that. Mm-hmm. But even just thinking through like, oh, hey, this is a property of this material that nobody's known up until this point. And it's almost just like a throwaway line, but that's the kind of thing that you talk about in a good fantasy novel of like, hey, this author created this new kind of magic, but it was so cool because they gave us almost the science behind it. Right. Like it's not just like, oh, Tony Stark has an arc generator stuck in his heart and now it powers his suit. It's
we watched three movies to watch him build it. Like
it's hey, there's this thing that like we actually learn like it felt like science class almost.
Yeah. And I thought that was really cool. Two other quick little things that I really liked. I loved that there wasn't a bad accent. I love that my hate it is not someone's accent. Taking place in Africa, even though a lot of the characters were played by African actors, some of them weren't, and it was good to see those actors not completely butchering the African accent.
I don't know. Martin Freeman probably could have done a little bit better with his. I'm just kidding.
With his American accent,
it was just weird.
It was so weird to hear Martin Freeman in an American accent.
I think he did a good job. I think it was just so weird.
It was.
He
did.
You know what that says to me? You know what that says to me? That says to me, none of you watched Fargo.
I didn't watch Fargo.
See. That's Minnesota is not an American accent.
That's Minnesotan there.
But because I do think Martin Freeman did like his first lines immediately. I was like, oh, this arrogant American agent. Like,
it was so
and he just
overstated.
And normally
like
Martin Freeman is so lovable, and I was like, oh god, this guy.
Yeah. Another thing I really liked. we finally saw a Stan Lee cameo that did not feel out of place.
It wasn't uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so good because he just
you
popped
could've-
in and was like, "Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Stan Lee."
You could have put any.
I'm just gonna keep this.
Well, the thing about it is, you could have put any other actor in that role.
It would have been fine.
And it would have fit. It would have
Yeah.
been a good punchline at kind of a tense moment. And it's the first time that I didn't feel like Stan Lee was in the movie just because it was Stan Lee.
yeah.
Yeah,
like,
Like, it was really bad in Guardians.
It was a good.
too.
It was a good. It was a good script position to insert Stan Lee. The last thing that I really loved, and I want to bring this up, despite fear of bringing this up, but I think it's important to say that this movie didn't have a political agenda. Like, and I really enjoyed that because that was the one thing that I think a lot of people are afraid of this movie for. And other than like, don't keep all of your awesome resources to yourself and share with the world, there's not a heavy political agenda.
It wasn't forced. It was like in line with what the plot of the story was, and you can make whatever connections you want to make, but it wasn't like on the nose.
Right. Like Bright.
Looking at you, Bright. Yeah.
Looking
Oh
at,
no, like
yeah.
I'm talking about the moment. No, but the problem is like you say that, and I know, but this movie, I remember at least 2 or 3 times me and Tara like stopped and looked at each other, and we were just like, "Yo, this movie got so woke real quick." I'm worried.
Not the same way.
I didn't say it didn't get woke. I said it doesn't have a political agenda.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
Like,
It
it didn't get preachy. Everything was integrated with the story. Really,
that moment when he's explaining what he's been through, when Killmonger is explaining what he's been through and what he's seen.
Oh
and,
yeah.
like,
But
and
like,
explaining why he wants Wakanda's weapons. Like when he does that, I was just like, whoa, ho, 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 ho.
exactly. But when you watch, did you watch Bright, Dane? On
Not
Netflix?
yet. Still got a
Okay.
chance to watch
So Bright on Netflix is very, very, very preachy about race.
heavy-handed,
And it's not subtle, and it's very on the nose, to the point where it's difficult to watch and take seriously as a sci-fi fantasy movie because the political agenda is so heavy-handed. And this one, like Black Panther, did not carry that, and I think that's one thing that a lot of people, especially with Ryan Coogler, who did Fruitvale Station, which did carry a big, very necessary political agenda. I think that's one thing that a lot of people feared, is like the only movie that he's done that wasn't a part of Rocky was Fruitvale Station, which had a strong political agenda. Therefore, this movie is going to have a strong political agenda because not only is he directing, but he's also co-writing. And it didn't. And I loved that. It was very woke, and it did have like a moral, but it was not a political agenda based moral. And I liked that.
I think it's because Ryan. I think. Trying to think of the best way to put this. I think it's because he's such a good storyteller, and he recognizes that his movies do have messages, and even this one, I agree with you, Dane. I think has some really powerful messages and things that people are going to take away from this. Or I think, as Cole said, like you can take away, or different people will get different things out of this. But he understands that the message has to serve the story, and he was going to tell a really good story. And if you tell a really good story, you're going to get good messages out of that without having to just beat people over the head with it, like in Bright.
For sure.
Or other movies.
Yeah.
So
those were the 4 things that I wanted to bring up, just because I didn't want to have the podcast without talking about them. And then really quick, my hate it. This is the first MCU film that I've watched where I have on multiple occasions been briefly distracted by obvious CGI. Specifically the waterfall one-on-one fight to the death scene, with the ape tribe. What was his name, Dane?
M'Baku.
specifically with him, when we first see it and we get the pan of the waterfall with everyone standing on it all the way up, that was probably the worst one, because behind Forrest Whitaker and Chadwick Boseman, like when we're looking at their faces, it's just like savannah, like that's all we see, and it was very much a green screen. And then and then when it flips to behind Chadwick Boseman and Forrest Whitaker, we get the waterfall, which is covered with like people of different tribes, different groups, that look amazing. The waterfall, that part looks amazing. Looking at the foreground at Chadwick Boseman and Forrest Whitaker standing in the pool looks amazing. Looking at it together, kind of distracting. But as a whole, all of them combined, I didn't leave the theater thinking, man, that CGI was so bad. Like, I had to, like everybody else, I had to think about something I hated. And that was the one thing that stuck out to me the most, even though it didn't take anything away from the movie for me. But that was my hate it. And that's everybody, right? We got everybody. Love it and hate it.
Yeah.
So looking forward, we've got Infinity War coming out in the summer. So obviously we're gonna get a lot more Black Panther. We're going to I mean, we've already seen that we're gonna get a lot more Black Panther. We're gonna get a lot more Wakanda.
Get this man his shield.
Get this man his shield. But that's one thing that I think, for Cole's hate it, we're going to see a little bit of the aftermath, because we already know we're going to be in Wakanda in Civil War. Not Civil War, Infinity War, excuse me. Also looking ahead past Infinity War, likely we're going to have Black Panther taking up the Captain America esque role.
Fist pump.
I think that he'll be kind of leading, like helping lead the Avengers. Which I think is really great.
He's so much more complex of a character, I think, than Captain America, as opposed to just like, I do this bad thing because I'm helping my friend. Otherwise, I'm basically like Superman.
Yeah.
Which like is cool and it works, and that's who Captain America is, and I get that, but T'Challa is such a more complex character, especially if they bring in like some of the stuff that he does in the books of just like, oh, you're also ruthless.
Yeah. Oh, quick, Dane, how disappointed were you that we didn't find an Infinity Gem in Wakanda?
Not too, but I was actually surprised. Like, I was honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I was expecting that there was gonna be something like where the Infinity Gem was buried in, like that's what was making the herb garden go wild.
Oh yeah,
I was expecting to see one. Like, I was expecting that in the after credit scene. I was expecting to see the last Infinity Gem.
Yeah, I guess they're just gonna hold off for the movie.
Yeah, so we're gonna get introduced to the final Infinity Gem in the first Infinity War movie. Likely Thanos is going to collect it, and then the end of Infinity War Part 1 will be Thanos having all of the gems, and then Infinity War Part 2 will be how do we stop Thanos? Right? Everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Probably.
Sure.
Probably.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah. Well, looking forward definitely to Black Panther being in Infinity War and a lot of MCU films moving forward. Definitely looking forward to a future BP2. For Black Panther, 9.7 out of Between the Cons. Great movie. Top 2 for origin stories, depending on which one of us you ask.
I would put this in my top 2 MCU movies overall.
Oh, definitely top 2 MCU movies overall. Definitely top 2 origin MCU movies.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. But 9.7, go check it out if you haven't seen it. Let us know what you thought. Hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Let us know what you thought of the movie. What would you rank it? What did you love? What did you hate? If you agree or disagree with anything that we said, fight us online. We love that. Dane and the Outlaw Steve Jr. probably most specifically live for that.
Yes. Come argue with me about this movie, bruh. I'm here for it today.
Bruh.
I got time.
I got time.
I got time.
But let us know what your thoughts are. Hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, @BetweenTheCons. Go to BetweenTheCons.com. Subscribe to the show. Listen online. Share with your friends. You guys tune in on Thursday because we're going to be back. We're going to be hitting the headlines, giving you the latest and greatest nerdy news. So you guys have a great week. Go watch Black Panther if you haven't already. And we will talk to you on Thursday.
Bye.
Please don't drop your mic, though, because that makes for bad podcasting.
No. My mic is strapped to my head.
All right, then definitely please don't drop. Actually,
I
do
just
drop your
imagine-
mic.